Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Now that canola harvest has wrapped up, we want to begin today by taking a look back at this year's crop, here in Enid at the annual Oklahoma and Kansas Canola Conference. Standing room only at the Enid Event Center this week for the 9th annual Oklahoma-Kansas Winter Canola Conference, where most producers were in pretty good spirits.
I think a lot of guys are excited about the crop and they're looking forward to next year. It got put through the ringer this year and they kind of saw what it can do, so I think a little rain makes everyone a little bit happier.
They're also happy to learn more about the rotational crop turned cash crop.
Yeah, a lot of guys kind of refer to it as a win-win-win. The price on canola is significantly higher right now than wheat, so they're getting more production on the canola. They're getting the rotation benefit. They're getting a cleaner wheat, higher producing wheat following their canola crop, as well as cleaning up their fields, which is one of the reasons why we tried to grow in the crop before. So utilizing it in a crop rotation has been very beneficial to the region.
There's very real economic benefits. The pie can get bigger.
I think it's a good opportunity to gather with other producers and kind of, bounce, different ideas off of each other. For one, the field is always, growing in as far as, chemicals or fertilizer, different things like that. There's, still discovering. You need to always try to grow. If not, you're probably dying. So.
And then, of course, things turned around for us in April and May and a little bit in February.
We learn something new every year, whether it's a new insect or it's a new disease or whether it's just dealing with Mother Nature.
There's also talk here about canola varieties and how the plant will be developed in the years ahead.
We need things that will survive the winter, that will produce very respectable yields, but also produce a lot of oil, because ultimately that's what we're trying to grow.
And it appears there will be plenty of continued growth in canola acreage in the future.
We have a lot more attendees than we expected, so huge plus. A lot of interest from the growers, a lot of feedback, a lot of questions, so overall I think it's been a very good success.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Widespread rain across the state and temperatures in the 70s? Were we really in Oklahoma in July? Obviously in Oklahoma, we should always be ready to expect the unexpected. We're going to march backwards, starting with a rainfall map of Wednesday's light rainfall across the western counties. The rain was really scattered. Consider Medicine Park recording 84 hundredths, and less than 20 miles away, Apache had just a few drops with only 1/100th of an inch. Adding in rainfall from Tuesday, our rainfall map shows a good band of rainfall across southwest and far western counties. Tipton recorded the most, 2 13/100 inches. When we total up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday rainfall, our map shows the southwest rain and a large band of good rain across the central part of the state. With Sunday's rain added in, we see just how widespread this 4-day rain event was. In Oklahoma City, just over 4 inches. In the tan areas, folks had 2.5 inches or more. On the low side for rain were the eastern quarter of the state and much of the Panhandle. Here's Gary with more on this week's rain.
Good morning, everybody, and what a wonderful week it's been for weather across the state of Oklahoma. Who could imagine we'd be seeing highs in the 70s and so much rainfall during the middle of July? So that upper level low pressure system that brought us this rainfall was certainly a godsend, and a great gift from Mother Nature. Now we looked at some rainfall from Oklahoma, but let's take a look at the entire southern region, see how the rainfall shaped up. So as you see from the map from the National Weather Service, this is a radar estimated map. You can see central and northwestern Texas actually got even more rainfall in Oklahoma, as much as 10 inches in some areas. So great relief down there in the parts of Texas. But you know, we got our fair share up here in Oklahoma as well. So if we take a look at the latest U.S. Drought Monitor map, and this is only for rainfall through Tuesday morning, we can see the rain brought improvements across central and southwestern Oklahoma. We actually got rid of all of the D4 drought in southwestern Oklahoma for the first time since August 7th, 2012. So 11 months worth of D4 disappeared with this rainfall. And we also saw more improvements across central and west central Oklahoma as well. We did see drought expand across northeastern and southeastern Oklahoma. So unfortunate for those folks, but at least the western 2/3 of the state got a pretty decent rainfall. Well, if we take a look again at this radar estimated map from the National Weather Service for the last 60 days, you can see the area of greater precipitation in central and eastern Oklahoma, of course, but also a lack of rainfall across western Oklahoma, up into northeastern and southeastern Oklahoma. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Kim Anderson, our grain marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, let's just start off today with an overview of what's going on in the markets.
Well, I'm watching the KC September contract. That's the hard red winter wheat contract, and the basis. That's the two things I'm concerned about. With the futures contract, it's just wallowing around. It had support at $7.10. It's below that support. I expected it to go down to around $6.85. It's just wallowing around right under that. It's either going to break out the top of $7.10 or it's going to go out the bottom of $6.85. We've got to wait and see what happens. The other thing I'm watching is the basis. As we've talked about, the basis is 35-40 cents above normal, and that concerns me.
As you keep looking at that, you're also getting questions from producers who want to know, should I sell my wheat? Should I store my wheat? What are some of the pros and cons?
Well, on making that decision, you've got to look at that futures contract. Is it going to go up or down? Because that's going to impact the cash price, and you've got to look at the basis. We don't know what the futures price is going to do. I don't think it's going to do very much, and it's not going to do anything until we get through corn. The basis, on the other hand, we know it's 35-40 cents above average. We have a tendency for mean reversion. In other words, it go back to the average. In other words, lose 35 or 40 cents. I believe that's going to happen when we get into corn crop. I think that's a guaranteed 35 to 40 cent decline in the price. Now, the futures price could go up and offset that, but the basis, why is the basis above average? That's what the producers have got to find out. And is it going back to the average?
And then take that into consideration in making their decision?
That's correct. Where's the biggest risk? I think the biggest risk is in the basis, because I don't think the basis is going to get any higher. In other words, result in higher cash prices because of an increase in the basis. And if that's the case, that signals the market wants our wheat now, and you should sell it now. If you want to stay in the market, one way to do it is sell the wheat and buy the board. If the futures goes down, you were going to lose that anyway because cash prices were going lower. If it goes up, then you capture it. If you're betting on the basis, you're betting on the basis going higher, and I think that's a bad bet.
Okay, all part of the game though, right?
All part of the game.
Okay, Kim, thank you. Another thing on the minds of producers, the price of 2014 harvest wheat. Kim will have much more on that next week on SUNUP.
Summertime's a season of the year where producers may find themselves in that situation where they need to treat one or more cows in the herd for some kind of an infection, such things as eye infections that may start as pink eye, or more commonly even foot problems. Foot rot often is a situation where we need to bring a cow in and give her the proper treatment. Certainly we want to caution producers about doing the right thing so that we avoid that situation where we may have a residue that results in a carcass that could come from one of these treated cows. There's basically 4, I think, pretty easy rules to follow that will help us alleviate that potential problem. Number one is to have a good veterinary client-patient relationship, one where you work with a large animal veterinarian in your area that works with you on a regular basis and knows the cattle that you're working with. Number two, use pharmaceuticals that are only intended for the cattle that you have. For instance, there would be a difference in terms of the restrictions for lactating dairy cattle than what we might have for beef cattle. So make sure you're only using the right kinds of pharmaceuticals, and of course, if they're prescribed, that you follow the veterinarian's prescriptions to the letter. Number three, there will be on any of these approved products a proper withdrawal time. Such things, it may range from 0 to 60 days before you can actually market that animal. Look at the label carefully, write that withdrawal time down, and follow it. If, for instance, if it's a 14-day withdrawal time and you give that injection on August 1st, then it's August 15th before you can think about marketing that particular animal. And finally, and certainly not least, keep good records. This can really be helpful to you in case there is some kind of an incidence of an animal that you have marketed on down the line that might show up with a residue in the tissue. If you'll keep good, solid, up-to-date records as to the kind of products that you give, when you gave it, the route of administration, the one on your operation that actually delivered the product, all of these things can be really, really helpful in case you have that rare incidence where they do find residue in some carcass of an animal that you sold. So, I really think that if you'll follow these rules very, very closely, and if you'd like more information and would like to study this a little more closely, go to the SUNUP website. We've got a link there for the Oklahoma Beef Quality Assurance Manual, and it will give you a lot of information about preventing these kinds of situations and the kinds of records that you might want to keep for your herd. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Switching gears now to wheat. Not every field that's cut is geared toward the market. Dave Deacon shows us how one crew is harvesting for the future.
Well, basically we're the beginning of the state seed crop. After the breeder releases a new variety, we take a small amount of seed and increase that on clean ground and get it to where we can have a large as possible amount of seed to release to seedsmen and farmers across the state.
They amplify the research. I mean, here we are running a research program, and they take that research and turn it into a commercial product. That's a very important transition to have right here in the university.
It's a method that takes thousands of Oklahoma acres to produce seed for millions of acres across the southern Great Plains. Before the combine comes off the trailer in this field near Perkins, these young men are taking the next step in quality control.
Today we are roguing, which is when you walk through a wheat field and you make sure that there's not any talls or off colors. And any different variety that you see in there, you want to pull that too. It's a pretty clean field, so.
This combine looks like any other, but it's been thoroughly brushed, cleaned, vacuumed, and reassembled to guarantee that the only seed that comes out of it is from this field. Foundation Seed does get help from experienced growers from all corners of the state.
Most of them's been doing it for a long time, and they're seedsmen for themselves as well. And they really go the extra mile for us.
I had 60 acres of Billings that I produced this last year for Jeff as Foundation Seed. I don't know how much he's going to need. He may need most of it, but he always has to plant more than, we hope we get more than what he needs every year. And this year he was pretty lucky. He had good crop about everywhere he had it planted.
There are certain things that growers must do to keep the seed the cleanest.
We do a lot of rotation. We plant milo and soybeans and things like that every year. So we've got some ground that can be rotated and have clean ground for that seed. And he'll just say, hey, have you got 40, 50 acres open for something new, or or if you want to increase a variety that you are growing, and we just work it into our schedule.
We're not only combining our blocks and some of it ourselves, but our growers that are growing for us will combine varieties. We will take our trucks and pick up that seed, and it seems like when harvest starts, we're going in all directions at once.
And when it comes out of the field, it's sent back to Stillwater in trucks like this, where the seed is thoroughly cleaned and processed before being stored or loaded out to producers across the southern Great Plains.
You know, wheat's our biggest crop, so we've got to take care of it.
That's the whole idea of the foundation seed. Is it's pure wheat seed. Helps clean up our whole program across the state.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk about disposing of some waste products that you might have around your house or your shop.
So you obviously accumulate a lot of waste oils, and the best thing to do with those is to accumulate them, keep them in a container, and you can take them to a recycling center, possibly even your auto parts shop, gas stations, whatever it may be, so you can get that oil recycled.
There's a lot of things that we certainly don't want to put into our landfills, and maybe, you know, old spray paint or any kind of old paint or things like that. Batteries, certainly we don't want to be throwing those into our regular trash.
And oil filters as well. I mean, it seems harmless, but still, those still need to go to some type of disposal center. And the places for batteries, even some of your hardware stores have a recycling station for those batteries. So be conscious of what you're throwing away.
Watch your local papers. A lot of times your city or your county may have a waste collection day. So when you have like several of these sitting around that might be partially full that you're trying to get rid of, you can take them and clean your space up, as well as help keep our environment a little cleaner.
And almost all of these, in fact all of them that I know about, they don't charge you for any of the disposal fees. So it's a good thing to do to keep our environment in good shape.
Same thing with a lot of the pesticides and stuff that we might use on the farm. So just keep your eye open and check with your county or your city and see when and how you can get rid of these and dispose of them properly. We'll see you next week on Shop Stop.
Feeder cattle prices have improved across the southern Great Plains, and we have our good friend Darrell Peel to talk to us about it. Darrell, what's causing that to look so good?
Well, I think, you know, there's several things going on in the feeder market. It's seasonally, it's a time of year when we expect to see peaks. In recent years, the peak in feeder cattle prices generally has been in the middle of the summer. You know, I think part of it is the fact that we are looking at a significantly improved corn crop. As we move into the fall and new crop corn, we're looking for sharply lower corn prices. That gets bid back into feeder cattle prices. But I think the primary driver going forward will just be the fact that in the second half of the year, we look for feeder cattle supplies to be significantly tighter than they were in the first half of the year. That's clearly going to pressure these prices up as much as the market will support.
Okay, and talking about peaks, this is usually a time of year where there's peaks in the beef prices. People are out grilling and everything, really enjoying the summer. Are we seeing that this year?
You know, relative to the strength we've seen in feeder prices, it's a little different story when you look at both box beef and fed cattle prices. Fed cattle prices have moved mostly sideways now for several weeks. You know, not improving, but not falling off as well. You know, we're kind of looking for a summer low there. The box beef market has actually dropped a little bit in recent weeks. We're past Memorial Day and 4th of July now, two of the biggest grilling weekends, and they were sort of okay holidays, but there were some weather issues around the country that sort of limited demand. We've got to get through the summer doldrums now here, the really hot part of the summer, and then see where beef demand is this fall. We're gonna keep a close eye on that beef demand situation. It's going to be very important as supplies, beef production will be sharply lower in the fall of the year, and that's going to pressure prices even more.
And kind of switching gears a little bit, Darrell, you recently went to Mexico and looked at the cattle market, and you wrote about that in your newsletter. What did you write about?
Well, there's, you know, Mexico continues to be a very dynamic market, and I think there's a couple things. You know, beef imports in the U.S. from Mexico have risen sharply in the last 4 years. Mexico is now our #4 source of beef imports.
Really?
And we've been watching sort of for how much potential was there in
that market. The most recent official monthly trade data showed those beef imports from Mexico down slightly for the first time in about 4 years. So that's one question, is sort of, have we sort of topped that market, or is it really a matter of supplies being limited in Mexico? And I think that's the other side of this, is that beef production in Mexico is being squeezed. They have liquidated significant numbers of cattle. Last year we got the second highest level of cattle imports from Mexico we've ever had, almost 1.5 million head. Wow. We're down over 400,000 head for the year to date, and we're going to end up this year getting barely more than half of what we got last year. They don't have the cattle, they're not sending as many up here, they're not able to maintain their beef production in Mexico, and that also impacts our exports of beef to Mexico. But perhaps more importantly in the short run here is that it's going to be one more reason why feeder supplies will continue to get tighter in the U.S. We won't have those Mexican cattle available as we go through the second half of the year.
Wow, it's going to be interesting summer, won't it? Darryl Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
A reminder, you can still register for the 23rd Annual Southern Plains Beef Symposium, August 10th in Ardmore. The day-long sessions include lunch and perspective on topics such as drought recovery, genetic traits, and product development. Then, August 13th, the Cattle Trails Cow-Calf Conference in Lawton will offer advice on maximizing cattle and wheat resources during changing markets and changing weather conditions. For more information, go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Quail are ground nesting birds that primarily nest in residual grass cover. So we're standing in this field in midsummer, and quail are actually still nesting, but the bulk of the nest attempts in Oklahoma are generally from about April 15th through late June. And by that time, there's not a lot of grass that has grown during that growing season, so they're looking for grass clumps that were produced in the previous growing season. So the decisions that you make on this pasture between now and April are going to largely dictate how much nest success the quail are going to have on this site. So this has a lot of implications with how we graze or hay pastures, because if everything is grazed or hayed off, April and May, you're not going to have a lot of nest production. They're going to have to wait until more grass is grown on that site. So stocking rate is really important with cattle, and how much of the area is hayed is really important if you're interested in ground nesting birds like bobwhite. So starting in about midsummer, you really need to think about how much of your property are you going to be willing to maintain in some kind of residual grass cover. And what that means from a quail standpoint is they need at least 8 inches of grass height, and the clumps of grass need to be about 1 foot in diameter. I'd recommend that at least 25% of your grassland areas have residual grass cover by April 15th. So that means that when you go into the fall, you need to have a lot of residual cover on those pastures, and then think about how you're going to graze them through the winter. But try to maintain about 25% or more of the landscape in residual grass cover of at least 8 inches grass height. And that will ensure that the quail have plenty of places to nest the following year.
Now to the people who solve plant and insect mysteries for people all across Oklahoma.
As a part of Oklahoma State University's wheat breeding team, Bob Hunger can be found each spring combing the fields looking for signs of disease.
The foliar fungal diseases and some of the other fungal diseases are usually pretty easily identified in the field. The virus diseases are the ones that are a lot tricky because their symptoms tend to merge together into an overall pattern of mosaics and streaks and those kinds of things, yellowing, which are a bit more difficult to identify.
For that help, Hunger turns to a lab tucked inside the Noble Research Center here at OSU, the Plant Disease and Insect Diagnostic Lab, also known as PDIDL.
Our primary mission is to serve the citizens of Oklahoma, whether it's a home gardener or a horticulturist.
Richard Grantham is the director of PDIDL. His focus is identifying insect threats, while Jen Olson heads up the effort with plant diseases.
People sort of equate what we do to sort of CSI for plants because it's the same idea. It's just merely a pattern of eliminating things until we finally figure it out and you have that eureka moment.
We can have different biotypes of insects. They're not necessarily a different species, they're just, say, a different flavor of that species. One of those flavors may be resistant to a pesticide. And in another case, when you look at the plant disease end of it, we have leaf spots on a leaf. Well, that leaf spot can be caused by a virus, it can be caused by a bacterium, it can be caused by a fungi, or it could be caused by a chemical. All four of those have different treatment options, and one of those has no treatment option. You can't treat a virus.
So the knowledge this lab provides can be the difference between treating the problem and spending money hand over foot for no result at all. Now, if you find yourself in need of the plant disease and insect diagnostic lab, the easiest route is through your county extension office.
A lot of times the county educator can tell them what's wrong with that plant because we've trained them in the common diseases and common insects out there. Now, if he can't tell them or she can't tell them exactly what it is, then they'll go ahead and mail it in to us.
We also ask our clients anytime possible to send images, especially when they're looking at an entire field and I'm just getting one little plant. Things look very different. It also looks different after it's gone through the mail.
If you'd like more information on the plant disease and insect diagnostic lab here at Oklahoma State University, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu, and click on the Show Links tab.
We're here to help. So if you have any kind of an insect that needs to be identified, or you have any kind of a disease going on, send it into your county extension officers, and we can definitely get it identified as to what the pathogen is or what the insect is that is causing problems on your plants. That's what we're here for.
That does it for us today. Coming up next week on SUNUP, we'll take you to the annual 4-H Roundup on the OSU campus. And remember, you can find our stories anytime at sunup.okstate.edu. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.